Hi, this instructional video is about absolute values, evaluating absolute value expressions. When we talk about absolute value, what we're talking about is on a number line from the origin, 0 that is, if I asked, hey, how many units from the 0 will you have positive 4? Then you would say, well, from 0 to 4, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 units. And then if I asked you, well then, how many units is negative 4 away from the 0? Then you'll say, well, it's negative 4 is actually 1, 2, 3, 4 units as well. So what that means is, if I say, what is the absolute value of 4? You say, there are 4 units from the origin to that 4. And if I asked, how many units is negative 4? Or what is the absolute value of negative 4? Then you'll say, well, negative 4, from the 0, there are 4 units. And that is why absolute value of negative 4 is equal to 4. So keeping that in mind, you can try to evaluate 1, 2, 3, and 4. Go ahead. All right, so if you said, well, I could see right away that from the 0, the origin, if you had to go to negative 20 all the way to the left side, where negative 20 would be, well, then you'll be 20 units away from the 0. So absolute value of negative 20 is, in fact, just 20. And you'll be right. Now it's getting quite obvious. So if you asked, well, how many units is 16 away from the 0? You'll say, oh, that's just 16. Yeah. Now you truly understand why absolute value of negative 5 is in fact just 5. It means 5 units away from the 0, you will find negative 5. And absolute value of 52 is just 52 units away from the origin, the 0. That's all there is to it. Well then, here's a little extension for the high-speed kids. Using the same premise of number of units away from the 0, now the question is kind of reversed. This is asking you, where will you be if you were 2 units away from the origin? Where will you be if you were 2 units away from the origin? Well, x can be either 2, because remember, here's a number line, here's the origin. If you went 2 units this away, it'll be positive 2. So there it is. But also, if you went 2 units that away, that'll be negative 2. So you have to say or negative 2. So those are the 2 possible answers when they ask you, where will you be if you were 2 units away from the origin? Yeah. And number 6 is kind of obvious, but of course the same principle applies. Here we go. So where will you be if you went nowhere from the origin? Well, that's quite obvious. And no, there is no negative or positive 0. It's just 0. So there's only one possible answer for that. Now here comes a little tricky part. Then I'll let you try that one. The question is, where will you be if you went 10 units from the origin? So let's turn this around. The question is, where will you be on the number line if you went 10 units this away, and you know that'll be 10, or 10 units that away? Then you know that'll be negative 10. But then what on earth is this? Well, you want this to equal 10 or negative 10. So what you need to do is solve this expression to equal that, meaning 2x is equal to 10, or 2x is equal to negative 10. There's two possible answers, but they have to be 10 or negative 10, so you solve for that x. In this case, to solve for this x, you have to use a thing called division property of equality. It's the inverse of 2 times x, which is divide that coefficient 2 to both sides. And the 2 reduces, simplifies to a 1. So x is equal to 10 divided by 2 is 5. And here, same thing. Divide the coefficient 2 to both sides of the equation to solve for x. 2 and 2 cancels out. So x is equal to, this time, negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. Now, to ensure that that is the correct answer for this absolute value equation, you just plug it in. You go, well, what's 2 times 5? Does that equal 10? Absolute value? 2 times 5 is 10. And what's the absolute value of 10? Just 10. It works. Do the same thing with the negative 5. You use the same equation, 2 times negative 5. Absolute value, does that equal 10? Well, 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. And once again, what's the absolute value of negative 10? Just 10. So that also works. So these two are correct responses. So now, can you try this one? All right. So you said, if you went 7 units from the origin, where will you be? Well, you know you have to be from the origin. If you went 7 units to the right, that'll be positive 7. But also, if you went 7 units to the left, it'll be negative 7. So this expression has to equal 7 or negative 7. So you set it up this way. X plus 2 is equal to 7, or x plus 2 is equal to negative 7. To solve this one, you have to use subtraction property of equality. You subtract the 2 to both sides of the equation. So 2 and negative 2, they're called additive inverse. They're opposite, so they cancel out. So x equals 7 minus 2, which is 5. And here, subtract the 2 to both sides of the equation. Negative 2, positive 2, they cancel out. X equals negative 7 and negative 2. We did this on the past instructional video. It's like you owe the bank $7. You borrow 2 more. How much do you owe the bank? $9 total. And those are your 2 possible solutions for that absolute value equation. You could try it on your own by plugging it in and to check. Okay? So, there it is. This is the expanded form, or this is the extension of the absolute value if you're a high-speed kid. Good luck!